Our next speaker is Mr. Sivakumar. He is a third-generation Singaporean. Sivakumar graduated from the National University of Singapore with a degree in law in 1996. And he has been running his own civil, corporate and business law practice for over 21 years. He is also an adjunct lecturer teaching Hinduism, Asian culture and society, law and business ethics in ISEC French Business School in Singapore. He is also a founding member of the Gita Reading Society in Singapore, where he runs and organizes regular weekly programs on the practical study of the Bhagavad Gita and other Hindu scriptures. He is also the founding member of Aratha Forum Limited, a non-profit enterprise dedicated to harmonizing ethics and values with business and profit. Siva also lectures regularly on Hinduism and its practical relevance at the National University of Singapore, Asian Civilizations Museum, ESSEC Business School, as well as a variety of religious and corporate organizations in Singapore and in several countries overseas. He also organizes specific programs for youth and children in this field. He has been a member of the Ramakrishna Mission and the Hindu Center in Singapore and currently oversees the activities of the Hare Krishna movement here as well. With that, I would like to invite Mr. Siva, who is from the Gita Reading Society. That's how we know him. For those of you who have attended the Singapore Book Fair in Suntec, we together with them have been there for years. And that's where we've met them, and since then we've built that relationship, and it was fortunate that we've managed to lock in this time with Mr. Siva. So thank you very much, and I welcome you to the stage. Thank you.
I can use this, right?
Yes.
So thank you very much, Mr. Abdulaziz, the Ahmadiyya Mission. Very happy to be at the premises today. As I came in here, I felt such tranquility and peace, and you have a wonderful atmosphere. So I'm very inspired to be amongst all of you. It's a good opportunity for us to share ideas and then to take them back and put them into practice. I just want to say a short invocation before I start. This is invoking our spiritual masters who guide us. It's invoking the presence of the Supreme Lord so that we will not say anything wrong or offensive in the nature of our discussion. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschat Desatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So Reverend Barry started this talk on a very good note, and I just want to take off from where he was speaking. Some thoughts on the concept of what Hindus think about in terms of interfaith relations and national harmony. Generally speaking, Hinduism has always been regarded as a way of life. In fact, the name Hindu does not even exist in any of the scriptures that are normally known as Hindus. Many people historically will understand that the word Hindu actually came about because of a mispronunciation of the word Sindhu, which is a river very far up in what is today the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, a very famous river known as Sindhu. So to put it very simply, the people on one side of the river referred to the people on the other side of the river as Sindhus. But because they didn't pronounce it as S, it ended up becoming Hindu. So generally speaking, I like to tell everyone that the word Hindu came from a mispronunciation. That's how it came. The real meaning, or how Hindus refer themselves to, is relevant for the purposes of our discussion. And it's known as Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma are two words in the Sanskrit language. Sanatan means eternal. Eternal because all the principles that all religious faiths speak about are actually immutable. They are eternal. Like the law of gravity, for example. It always existed before that apple fell on someone's head. And it will continue to exist even if apples don't fall on anybody's head. So in the same way, we believe that all religions have a very important point of eternity in terms of values. The other word that's very interesting is the word dharma. You hear it a lot today, even outside the Hindu concept. You hear it a lot in the Buddhist concept. The word dharma has many meanings attached to it, but the important meaning is dharma generally means nature. So if I look at fire, for example, then we would say that the nature of fire is to burn. The nature of water is to flow. In the same way, the Hindus believe that the nature of this world is that nothing will last forever. And yet, everyone who is alive think that they will actually live for a long, long time. So the truth of the matter is, the Hindus believe that everyone has an eternal nature. And the one nature that is eternal and in one sense common to all of us is the nature of service. If you look at all the relationships you have in this world today, you'll find essentially they're all based on service. Anyone whom you love, you will extend your love by way of service. Anyone whom you want to reach out to, you will find that you reach out to them on the platform of service. In the corporate world, when you tell someone that I am a servant, it has very different connotations. In the spiritual world, when you use the word servant, it induces a very powerful message that ultimately our real dharma, our real nature is to serve. The sooner we embrace it, the easier it becomes for us to be on one common platform. So the Hindus believe, on the basis of the definition of the religion, that we are all united in the service to God and all living entities. Hinduism is generally a way of life. Why? Because it's generally guided by values. Very often when we speak about Hinduism, we speak about it based on the emphasis of values. Because ultimately it is values that define spiritual life. And you will find that the concept of God is never divorced from the concept of all the best values that we can find. So the idea is that Hinduism has been, throughout the ages, a collection of spiritual experiences, and it's meant to uplift us from darkness to ignorance, and onward from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge. There's a very famous prayer in a Hindu scripture known as the Upanishads. Upanishads literally means to sit close and hear. Generally speaking, that was how scriptures were passed by word of mouth. And this is a very nice prayer. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotir gamaya, mrityo ma amritam gamaya. It is a prayer which is like a clarion call to all humanity. And basically it says, lead us from that which is untruth to truth. Asat means untruth and Sat means truth. Lead me or us from darkness to light, and lead me from death to immortality. So the whole concept of relationship in this world is that we are all evolving. And everyone is just on a different level. When you use the word different, it's very different from saying you are higher and I am lower. When we are different, it just means that we are on different levels. But there is no comparison between who is lower and who is higher. So, in Hinduism, there's this concept also that actually there is a harmony of religions. And it starts with the most earliest of the Hindu scriptures known as the Rig Veda. And in the Rig Veda, which is actually a collection of beautiful hymns and poetry, there is one line that has stood the test of time in the Hindu faith. And it's that last line that you see in the sentences. Truth is one, Sages and the wise call him by many names. That is the essence of the perspective of Hinduism on the concept of God as well as the concept of religions. And that concept is very important in today's times because we are all seeking truth. No matter where we have come from, everyone is attracted to truth. Even if we did not subscribe to a religion when we were all young, our mothers and fathers always taught us the value, better to tell the truth and get punished, because one lie will lead to many, many lies, and that's the end of you. There's another saying in Hinduism that says that if you try to hide lies with truth, if you say, I'm truthful in my lying, then what happens is the solution that you find in your lies become worse than the lies that you started with in the first place. So it's a complicated world that we complicate. And that is why we are all seeking truth. Truth just comes in different names and different forms. But it is one spiritual reality. Sometimes it assumes different guises. Like Reverend said today, we're all in different, we are in different attires. We wear different clothings. We may subscribe to what appears to be different beliefs. But generally speaking, when we look deeper, we always realize that the commonality is very often much stronger than the apparent differences. So, the idea of God in Hinduism is that there are three very important foundational qualities. God is always existing. God is full of knowledge. And knowledge just doesn't mean the book knowledge. There's a vast difference between knowledge and realization. And this knowledge refers to realization. And finally, what is the point of subscribing to a faith when ultimately we cannot become happy? Hinduism says that we may all look different, but we have a common goal, even in this room. Every one of us just wants to be happy. If you ask how you want to be happy, we'll give you a variety of different roads. If I do this, I'll become happy. If I don't do this, I will become happy. So we all have different objectives, but the objectives of how to get to the common goal is that the common goal is the same. We have a saying that only two kinds of people in this world don't have happiness as their goal. One is what we call the insane man, and the other is what we call the dead man, because dead man cannot be happy. He's dead. Apart from these two categories, every one of us is after happiness. If we can keep that as the focal point of what we're looking for, then our duty as servants of each other becomes how we can become instruments in making each other happy. So that's a very important point from Hinduism. There is a parable which today in the Western world has become very famous because of a poem. But it's very interesting. Hinduism has many stories. There were 4 blind men, and they were walking down the road. And they bumped into a large object. The first blind man said, "My dear brothers, I don't know what you are feeling, but my experience is I have come across a huge snake. It has winded itself around my neck, and it is actually strangling me." The second blind man says, "My brother, I think you are wrong, because what I'm feeling actually is a very furry creature. Feels very small. I think I've bumped into a mouse." The third blind man says, "You're both wrong, because actually what I'm feeling is a very large tree stump, and it's right in front of me, and I can't get around it." And the fourth man said, "You're all wrong, because what I'm feeling is this leathery, large canvas in front of me, and no matter what I do, I can't get around it either." The story goes that all 4 blind men actually bumped into one single object. It was an elephant. One of them bumped into the trunk of the elephant and thought, "Aha, the trunk, it must be a snake." The other one bumped into the tail of the elephant, and if you have had time to feel the elephant's tail, you will notice it's quite furry at the end. The third one actually bumped into the foot of the elephant, and it felt like a tree stump. And the fourth man felt the large, vast, canvas-like, leather-like body of the elephant, and he said, "No, it's leather actually." The important point of this very simple story is that none of the blind men were wrong in their experience. They were right because they experienced it. No one can take the value of your spiritual experience from you. But to say that your spiritual experience is the only spiritual experience may not always be right. That is a very important point that Hinduism has stressed for centuries, that we are all at different levels of spiritual experience. If you sit down at a water hole and you drink water, every one of us have different languages that we speak, and we have different dialects within our languages. And water, if you go to India, for example, you have a variety of ways to describe water. If you use the word if you use Sanskrit as an ancient language, there are at least 25, 26 different ways to describe different types of water in Sanskrit. But at the end of the day, when you taste water, everyone will agree the taste is taste. This is water. We may call it different. We may somehow go to the watering hole thinking that what we will drink is different because we have named it differently. But once we share the experience of drinking water, we will all know that water has quenched our thirst. And we all come out of the water hole with a common experience. So that's a very important point. That is why Hinduism says that all of us are actually on the same journey. There is a nice verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very important scripture for the Hindus. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajami aham mama vadma anuvartante manusyaha partha sarvasaha. And Krishna, the speaker of the Gita, says, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. But what's really important is everyone follows my path in all respects. So actually, everyone is following a path, and every path is complete. That is why it is known as in all respects. So this is a very important point. A moment of reflection that the Hindu scriptures speak about is also relevant for us because we live in uneasy times where, as Reverend so rightly pointed out, it is more often easier to disagree and criticize and very often fight than it is to agree and become peaceful with each other. There is a very powerful verse in another scripture in Hinduism that actually reflects on what a religious system should not be. How can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and others be beneficial for oneself and for them? What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained? By causing pain to one's own self due to self-envy, and by causing pain to others, one arouses your anger and practices irreligion. So actually, this is a very powerful statement. And it is how a doctor can treat the symptoms of a disease. It doesn't matter what religious system one may claim to be part of. But if there is envy, if there is hatred, if there is criticism, then the scripture tells us we are not causing harm to others actually. Ultimately, we are causing harm to ourselves. Have you noticed how when we criticize others, those who are being criticized, they sleep very well? But those who are criticizing, you find that they can't sleep. They're thinking and thinking out of envy of a person, and they don't go to sleep. But if you ask someone, do you know he's always thinking of you in an unfavorable manner? They say, well, okay, that's fine. Do you sleep well? Yes, I sleep very well. So you find that criticism only hurts us. Actually, in the Hindu scriptures, there is a prayer that says, my dear Lord, if the teeth in the mouth actually bite the tongue, who can it blame? Who can the body blame? We can't blame anyone. Have you been in situations where you're very hungry and suddenly you bite your own tongue? You're very frustrated. You can't blame your wife. You can't blame your children. Can't shout at anyone. You just have to look into yourself. So the point is, for us to come to a point of good interfaith relation, a very good starting point is to reflect on who we are and how we are carrying out the principles of our religion. If we can understand that, then we can serve others much better. So the harmony of religions is a harmony of values. You all must have heard of the famous epic known as the Mahabharata. It's a precursor to all soap operas of today, in one sense. It involved two warring families, the Pandavas on one side and the Kauravas on the other. The Kauravas were what we call not the so good guys. The Pandavas were the heroes. They had to come to a point where the Pandavas were the rightful heirs to the kingdom. But the Kauravas refused to give them even a small piece of it. If the Kauravas decided or won the war, then what would have happened would be that irreligion and immorality would reign. So the interesting thing is, the Pandava army was comprised of so many kings and soldiers from backgrounds of all diversity. They were of different religious beliefs, they were of different castes, they were different creed, but the important thing is, they were united on the basis of good values. And that was their unity. Then you had the Kauravas. They were all also of diverse culture and beliefs. But the difference is, they were united, but they were united on the basis of their immorality. So unity alone is not important. But what is the value that we are united by? That is what is very important between all of us. There's a story also that says, 2 sons were sitting down beside a father who was very ill. And the father said, please massage me. You take my right side, you take my left side. So halfway through, while they were massaging the father, they begin to quarrel. I'm massaging better. No, you should massage this way. This technique is better. That technique is better. And while they were saying the techniques, they were applying the techniques with great force on the poor father. At the end of it, the poor father was the one who was very hurt. And he had to tell them, my dear sons, while you're discussing techniques, don't forget, I'm the one being massaged. It's very important that you understand that our Supreme Father will always be happy when we are all not grousing and grouching and fighting with each other, but serving Him in different capacities. It's very easy in religious systems to forget what is the goal. And the moment the goal goes out of our horizon, that's when interfaith becomes a challenge. The Vedas, which are the scriptures, they tell us to be like honeybees. And you know, I was so amazed because I read a very similar quotation right here. It was really nice. And I don't think we spoke about it.
No, it wasn't planned.
This is a meeting of the hearts. It's right here. A sober man accepts only a man's glories and not his faults. For flies seek sores, whereas honeybees seek honey. So Hinduism tells us it doesn't matter where we come from, but be like the honeybee. Learn from Mother Nature. The honeybee only goes for honey. But the flies, when they get together, you only see them never on the beautiful flowers. You see them where there is filth. So we can come together. But again, why are we coming together? It's on the basis of these wonderful values. Which is why Hinduism encourages that the best way to become genuinely happy and peaceful in this world is actually to look out for qualities that you admire and learn from people of all religions and all faiths. And that is how we learn to become better people. That's how we become complete. The foundation is the same, but sometimes the building comes out different. Very often when we have interfaith dialogues, we get into what we call the nitty-gritties. And then that's where the brakes get pulled out and we get stuck. There's a story in Hinduism that says that you should always be very careful to divide sugar from sand. All scriptures have 2 values. They have foundational elements, and then they have relational elements, according to time, place, and circumstances. It is the duty of each one of us to really look carefully for that which is sweet, the sugar, and to learn the art of putting the sand aside, to extract the essence of religion, to understand our true relationship with our Creator and each other, and let the rest of it be according to time, place, and circumstances. That which helps to bring out the best in us, we embrace. And that which pushes us away from that ideal, we should avoid. So the essence of all teachings is the same. This is a verse from the Mahabharata, and I don't have to tell you how close this is to many verses you have heard from many scriptures. This is the sum of duty. Do not unto others what you would not have them unto you. Do unto you. This is another very important saying that we have. It is the saying that the names of God are one and many. One should simply chant His name. How? In a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of any sense of false prestige, and ready to offer respects to all others. If we have this state of mind, we can constantly chant the great names of the Lord. So the harmony of God, of religions, is about loving God and others. One of the great saints of Hinduism, Srila Prabhupada, made this very powerful statement. Real religion is not about just being Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Jain, or Parsi. It's actually about loving God and being an instrument of His compassion to everyone at every stage of our life. And this is how, hopefully in this world, we can transform arrogance into humility. Where there is greed, we become generous. Where there is hatred, as this wonderful mission has put, there should be love. Where there is a need to take revenge, there must be forgiveness. And where we just think of ourselves, it's time to think beyond us. And this is where we end the principle of unity in diversity. In this verse from the scriptures in Hinduism, the speaker speaks this way. Different people are of different mentalities. If only we could learn that one slogan and use it all over the world, it would pave the way for so much of communion and unity. Just to accept that everyone is different. And we don't disagree with difference. We celebrate because it is diversity. So everyone is of a different mentality. It is not our business either to praise them or to blaspheme them. Sometimes there's a saying that goes, when you praise someone too much, actually, you're not praising them. Sometimes when you praise yourself too much, self-praise is international disgrace. You've heard of that, haven't you? So the scriptures tell us, instead of simply praising or simply criticizing, better we serve them. If we serve them, then we desire their welfare. And we hope that whatever path that they are taking, let them be one with that path, and they become peaceful in what they're doing. So diversity is always celebrated. And it doesn't mean that all of us, as Reverend so rightly pointed out, it doesn't mean that tomorrow all of us must become homogeneous. It doesn't mean that unity of religions means that we all merge. You have your own father and I have my own father. To me, my father is the best father in the world. And you will feel the same way about your father. And if I come and tell you, actually you're wrong, I've got news for you. My father is just a little bit better than your father. How would you feel? So sometimes the tendency is that we feel that unity means we must all be of the same faith. But that's not necessary. We can develop respectful, practical relationships with one another. Learn to agree and learn to appreciate. Learn to accept instead of expecting. In expectations, many things cannot be worked. But in accepting one another, many things can be done. Interfaith dialogue in Hinduism happened historically between two personalities in India. There was a personality known as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you read about him, you'll know that he was a saintly personality, considered to be an incarnation of the Lord. And he was speaking to the ruler of Bengal at that time. He was Muslim and he was known as the Chand Kazi. It was 15th century India. And the conversation between them, representing their faiths, has been well recorded. I just reproduced to you what was the starting point, because for me this is very relevant to us. Lord Chaitanya said, because they were actually related, he was actually his uncle. Chaitanya, the Chand Kazi, was his uncle. So he said, my dear uncle, I have come to your home just to ask you some questions. And the Kazi said, yes, you are welcome. Just tell me what is in your mind and what is in your heart. Our firm belief, all of us, is that why we have come together today is to reveal not only our minds, but deeper than that, to reveal our hearts. When there is a meeting of the hearts, even things which are very difficult to cross, we can cross it. I do a lot of mediation in my legal work, and fortunately, unfortunately, I also handle a lot of couples who have problems in their marriage. And I always tell them, if you reveal what is really in your heart, instead of just speaking on your mind, from your mind, you'll understand what happens. Generally speaking, my experience is when someone tells you I have a headache, if you dig a bit deeper, you'll realize, hey, he actually has a stomach ache. It looks like a headache, but it's a stomach ache. All interfaith dialogues begin with our hearts. And when that happens, Hinduism says national harmony anywhere in the world becomes a very natural consequence. It will never be an artificial imposition. Because truly speaking, we are citizens of this nation, we are citizens of the world, and we are citizens of the spirit world. So thank you very much for your time, and I really am honored in this August assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Siva.
One last point that I forgot to say. As I was ending it, I was asking myself, what should I take back from this instead of just speaking? And I thought a very important point is the application. I don't want to come here and just speak about interfaith and go back and not practice it. I want to be able to introduce it to the society. The way I was inspired to hear how the blood donation drive went between two organizations. And I want to leave you with a very nice story, which I think is very relevant. 3 men were waiting under a mango tree, and they were waiting for a mango to drop. If you've eaten mangoes, you know it's worth the wait. As they were waiting for the mango to drop, there was a bird that came and sat on the branch of that mango. And the mango just moved a bit on the branch, and then a gust of wind came, and the mango dropped. So the 3 men picked up the mango, and they were going to eat the mango because that was the goal. Just before they ate the mango, the first man said, "My brothers, what do you think caused the mango to drop?" The second man said, "Well, it was the gust of wind." The third man said, "No, it was the weight of the crow." And the first man said, "It was a combination of both." And they discussed and discussed and discussed. A young boy walks past, sees the mango on the ground, sees 3 men talking, looks the mango again and thinks, this is a good mango. Picks up the mango, bites into the mango, takes away the mango. The 3 men look around after their discussion and say, "Hey, where's the mango?" So I think it's something that I want to take back. We have spoken, now we have to act on it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Siva. Okay. So one of the things, for those who may have missed it, I didn't know that Hinduism, or the word Hindu, comes actually from a river. So I definitely learned that today. And the actual name is Santana Dharma, which is another thing that I didn't know. Also, I think I understood that there is only one God, and that is the truth, right? And that the other gods that you have are just what you referred to as just wise and sages, call them by many names. At least that's how I understood it. I really like the Pursuit of Happiness theme, and thank you very much for showing us that, loving God and loving everybody is an underlying theme, not only between Hinduism, but also in Christianity now, and I love that because it's also with us as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Siva.